Welcome to NTD Evening News. Our top story tonight. Today marks the 6th day of the search for Nancy Guthrie, the 84-year-old mother of NBC anchor Savannah Guthrie. There are still no suspects, but more information about the alleged ransom note is coming out. Arlene Richards brings us the latest. President Trump doubling down in his fight for election integrity. He's urging Republicans to pass the SAVE Act, which would require citizenship and photo ID to vote. Mario 2 at the White House. The United States and Iran finished their first round of talks today in Oman. Both sides say they prefer to reach a nuclear deal, but are ready for war if necessary. Jason Perry with the details. The U.S. today securing custody of a man who allegedly killed 4 U.S. personnel in Benghazi, Libya in 2012. Arian Pazdar has what officials say about the operation and the arrest.
This is NTD Evening News, live from our global headquarters in New York City. Here's Tiffany Meyer.
Good evening and thank you for joining us tonight. As the search for NBC anchor Savannah Guthrie's mother, Nancy Guthrie, stretches into its 6th day, more information has been coming out about the ransom note. NTD's Arlene Richards has the latest.
What I found interesting, because we knew she wore an Apple Watch. There are pictures of her with Savannah with that watch. But they mentioned where the watch was.
That's Harvey Levin, the founder of TMZ, telling Fox News why he thinks the ransom note his media outlet received from alleged suspects in the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie is likely real. Levin told Fox News on Thursday evening the note stated exactly where the watch was placed in the house. And it also mentioned the placement of a floodlight, which had never been made public. An FBI special agent confirmed these as well during a news conference on Thursday afternoon. The sender of the note demanded millions of dollars in Bitcoin for Nancy Guthrie's safe return. They also called for the crypto to be transferred to a legitimate yet unidentified Bitcoin address. An initial deadline of 5 p.m. Thursday has passed. The next deadline is set for Monday.
The Monday deadline is far more consequential.
Levin said the letter states that the family will not have any way to contact them. And that's why, he said, the family is seeking assurances about their mother. Nancy Guthrie's son, Cameron Guthrie, made a new video appeal on Thursday to his mother's potential captors.
This is Cameron Guthrie. I'm speaking for the Guthrie family. Whoever is out there holding our mother, we want to hear from you.
Levin has also said he doesn't believe Nancy Guthrie is in Tucson anymore, but he believes she's in the area.
At least, you can look at this area and say, this is where people should be particularly vigilant.
Right.
Meanwhile, the Pima County Sheriff's Department posted on Friday that their office has not scheduled any more briefings, citing a lack of new leads. This follows a comment by Sheriff Chris Nanos on Thursday for the media to be patient.
Please give us some space, and that's not just physical space. Give us some space, give my team some time, because these things do take time, and they are difficult. And everybody out there is really working hard.
On Thursday, the FBI arrested a Los Angeles man who pretended to be the abductors. The man, Derek Colella, was expected to appear in court on Friday afternoon. In an unrelated press conference on Friday, Attorney General Pam Bondi said she was heartbroken over the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie.
Breaks my heart for Savannah and for her family. I know she's asked for all of our prayers. So please pray for her beautiful mom, pray for her family, that she's returned home.
Authorities said Nancy Guthrie was last seen at her Tucson home around 9:30 p.m. on Saturday. Arlene Richards, NTD News.
Late this afternoon, Sheriff Nanos and the FBI posted on social media that they were aware of a new message on Nancy Guthrie. It's not clear what kind of message it is or if it's connected to any of the previous ransom notes. The statement says authorities are actively inspecting the information provided in the message for its authenticity. They're asking the public to continue sending in tips. President Trump is doubling down on his administration's fight for free and fair elections. Ahead of a House vote next week, he's urging Republicans to pass the Save America Act. This coming amid a 2020 election fraud probe, with the White House equating election integrity with national security. We now go live to NTD's Washington correspondent, Mario 2 at the North Lawn of the White House. Mari, good evening.
Tiff, good evening. That's right, and President Trump is doubling down and declaring America's elections, quote, stolen, rigged, and a laughingstock globally. This is coming as he urges GOP lawmakers to pass the SAVE Act, which is a bill that would require voters to show photo identification and proof of American citizenship. And this also comes amid a 2020 election fraud probe, with the White House declaring election integrity as synonymous with national security. Take a look.
It's called voter identification. When you go to the polls, you show, yes, my name is so-and-so, and I live in the country. I'm here, I can vote. They say, that's not allowed. And no, everyone's trying to figure it out. And they do something to win. You know what it is? They cheat.
The only reason you don't want to have voter ID is because you want people to vote who aren't citizens or shouldn't be voting. That's the simple truth.
A Pew Research poll from 2025 shows overwhelming bipartisan support for requiring photo ID to vote. According to the poll, 71% of Democrats, 95% of Republicans, and 83% of all Americans agree. This push for the SAVE Act coming a couple weeks after President Trump, speaking in Davos, vowed justice is coming for the 2020 presidential election.
And it wouldn't have started if the 2020 U.S. presidential election weren't rigged. It was a rigged election. Everybody now knows that. They found out. People will soon be prosecuted for what they did.
And last week, FBI agents executed a federal search warrant at an election hub in Georgia. They seized hundreds of boxes containing original 2020 physical ballots, voter rolls, tabulator tapes from voting machines, and other records. Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard was present at the FBI search, drawing much scrutiny from Democratic lawmakers and the media.
We now have these claims by these rogue actions of the Director of National Intelligence. We have these conversations of federalizing elections.
The White House, meanwhile, says President Trump has tasked Gabbard to oversee the, quote, sanctity and security of American elections, and thus works directly alongside the FBI Director Kash Patel.
But let me ask you this. If China or any of these countries are involved in our elections, that would bring her into it. Look, we have to have honest elections.
Yeah. I've seen a lot of the media in this room get very caught up with the semantics of why Tulsi Gabbard is there. I will tell you why, and the president agrees with this, because election security is essential to national security. And as the Director of National Intelligence, it is a part of Ms. Gabbard's role to make sure that American elections are free of foreign interference.
In a letter to Congress, Gabbard defends her role, writing, quote, to preserve the integrity of our elections, we must understand whether there has been foreign or other malign influence in our elections and whether vulnerabilities exist in our election infrastructure that could be exploited in future elections.
I mean, how is it politicized? She's a law enforcement official tasked with our national security, and certainly I don't think there's any dispute that the conduct of our elections, which are literally the way that our government comes into power, is a national security issue.
Meanwhile, President Trump is celebrating stocks hitting a historic milestone today as the Dow crosses 50,000 points for the first time in history. And just before jetting off to Palm Beach for Super Bowl weekend, President's urging Americans to remember this economic milestone when they go to vote in the midterm elections. Tiff, back to you.
All right, Mari, thanks for those updates, and stay warm out there. The United States and Iran finished their first round of talks today in Oman. Both sides are saying they prefer to reach a nuclear deal, but are ready for war if necessary. NTD's Jason Perry has the latest.
High-stakes talks between the United States and Iran were held in Oman on Friday. The two sides were expected to try to reach a nuclear deal to prevent Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon. President Trump has suggested that if Iran does not reach a nuclear deal with the U.S., then U.S. troops will take military action against Iran, something Tehran says it's ready for. The day before the talks were set to take place, Iran unveiled what it called one of its most advanced long-range ballistic missiles. And on the other hand, the United States Central Command released this time-lapse video of an aircraft carrier south of Iran, saying, quote, what looks like a random rush of jets and people is actually a well-orchestrated routine. This is one of several U.S. warships currently deployed to the south of Iran. And on Friday, Oman's foreign minister met separately with a delegation from Iran, including Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi. He also met with a delegation from the U.S., including U.S. Envoy Steve Witkoff, President Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner, and for the first time, America brought its top military commander in the Middle East to the table. After the talks, Iran's foreign minister said, quote, "The prerequisite for any dialogue is refraining from threats and pressure." And he added this about talks on a nuclear deal.
I think it was a good start, a good beginning, and now we have to go back to our capitals and discuss, the question with our superiors and explain what happened during these negotiations, and we will decide for the next round, inshallah.
The U.S. did not immediately comment after the talks. However, the U.S. Central Command later posted these pictures on X of U.S. warships south of Iran with a message saying peace through strength. And also shortly after the talks, the U.S. announced new sanctions targeting Iran's Shadow Fleet, which is an underground network of ships used to dodge sanctions and sell Iranian oil abroad. The new sanctions are aimed to stop the flow of revenue that the Iranian regime uses to support its terrorist activity abroad, such as support for Hamas, the Houthis, and Hezbollah. Jason Perry, NTD News.
The U.S. today is securing custody of a man who allegedly killed 4 U.S. personnel in Benghazi, Libya in 2012. The Department of Justice says the arrest shows that the Trump administration has not forgotten about that horrific attack. NTD's international correspondent Ariane Pozdar has the story.
And we have never stopped seeking justice for that crime against our nation.
Attorney General Pam Bondi announcing that an alleged terrorist is now in U.S. custody on Friday. On September 11, 2012, an attack on a U.S. embassy in Benghazi, Libya, killed 4 U.S. service members. Those were Ambassador Chris Stevens, State Department official Sean Smith, and CIA contractors Glenn Doherty and Tyrone Woods.
We have never forgotten those heroes. Today, I'm proud to announce that the FBI has arrested one of the key participants behind the Benghazi attack.
The suspect is Zubair al-Bakush. Fox News published this footage showing he landed at Andrews Air Force Base at 3 a.m. on Friday. Bondi says he's now in FBI custody. On the night of September 11, 2012, at least 20 terrorists armed with AK-47s and grenade launchers breached the gate of the Benghazi consulate and set buildings on fire, ultimately killing the 4 service members.
Al-Bakush will now face American justice on American soil. We will prosecute this alleged terrorist to the fullest extent of the law.
Bondi says al-Bakush is facing charges related to murder, terrorism, arson, and others. FBI Director Kash Patel praising the achievements the Bureau has made so far under President Trump.
We captured together, under President Trump's leadership, 6 of the FBI's most wanted fugitives in 1 calendar year.
It's not yet clear exactly how the suspect was captured after 14 years. Patel says he can't disclose details leading up to the arrest, like whether the suspect was on the run or had already been arrested by Libyan authorities. Here is what the FBI director did say about the operation.
A foreign transfer of custody is executed by the FBI each and every time with special tactical assets, FBI agents, and of course medical personnel. And that was done in this instance. And the individual was apprehended and transferred over the night and into custody early this morning at an airfield.
Patel added that he can't say whether the U.S. was acting on its own or had received help from foreign authorities. Officials have not yet announced when al-Bakush is scheduled to appear in court. Ariane Pozdar, NTD News.
A top Russian general was shot in his Moscow apartment building today. Russia's foreign minister accused Ukraine of involvement in what he called an attempted assassination. Officials say the high-ranking officer is the deputy head of the GRU, Russia's military intelligence arm. An unidentified gunman fired several shots and fled the scene. The 64-year-old was rushed to the hospital in serious condition. The shooting follows a series of assassination attempts Russia has blamed on Ukraine. Since the start of the war in 2022, Ukrainian military intelligence has claimed responsibility for assassinating several senior Russian officers. Coming up, President Trump announces a new website for lower prescription drug prices. Jason Blair tells us what TrumpRx is and how to use it. Some 1 million Chinese anchor babies with U.S. citizenship could become eligible voters in the coming years. An investigative reporter is sounding the alarm on China's exploitation of U.S. birthright citizenship. We'll have the highlights from his interview with the host of Epic TV's American Thought Leaders. Welcome back. I'm Tiffany Meyer. The Trump administration announced the launch of a new website offering popular prescription drugs with most favored nation prices. NTD correspondent Jason Blair brings us more on the program's goals and how consumers can use it.
Starting tonight, dozens of the most commonly used prescription drugs will be available at dramatic discounts.
On Thursday night, President Trump announced the launch of TrumpRx.gov. The website says it lists discounted drug prices from manufacturers that have agreed to most favored nation pricing. The Trump administration describes most favored nation pricing as getting prescription drug prices in America at comparable and/or better prices than they are in other countries like Canada, Germany, and France.
We're going to make the prices fair, and that's called most favored nation pricing.
President Trump issued an executive order in May to work on establishing this for Americans. TrumpRx currently has 43 drugs available and boasts savings ranging from 50 to 93%. These include popular weight loss drugs, fertility treatments, and others for conditions like diabetes and asthma. The website says there are two ways to get the listed price. One is if the drug has a coupon on its webpage. You can print or download the coupon and bring it to your pharmacy to get the listed price. The other is if the drug doesn't have a coupon, there will be a link on the drug's webpage to buy the drug at the manufacturer's website. The prices are for out-of-pocket buyers. However, the site says if you have insurance, check your copay first. It may be even lower.
The copays and deductibles are going up each year in healthcare. And so what you're actually seeing is a phenomenon in the United States where the cash price is below the copay.
McCary says that the number of drugs on the site will increase, and the site aims to solve the, quote, amount of money games that go on with healthcare's middlemen.
Pharmacy benefit managers, or PBMs, which is an arm of the insurance companies, have many shell games to skim money off the top.
And the Department of Health and Human Services announced a radically revised food pyramid in January. The new dietary recommendations have increased protein portions by 50 to 100%, as well as moving healthy fats from the bottom to the top of the pyramid. The new guidelines get an endorsement from retired boxing legend Mike Tyson in a new Super Bowl ad.
Something has to be done about processed food in this country.
Tyson writes, "I'm not fighting for a belt, I'm fighting for our health. Processed foods are killing us. We have been lied to, and we need to eat real food again." Reporting in Washington, D.C., Jason Blair, NTD News.
And what do everyday Americans make of TrumpRx.gov and the administration's effort to bring down the cost of prescription drugs? NTD's Sam Wong was out on the National Mall in D.C. to hear from the people.
You happen to know anyone around you who are burdened by the prices of pharmaceuticals?
Yeah, we have some high cost on some of the meds that we do. So
no, I don't. I'm pretty. My family's pretty healthy, and we're healthy, so I don't. Yeah.
You know, people, older people mostly. All their medication is really high.
I think some of the pharmaceutical companies are making a killing, you know, off of pharmacies that doesn't need to be, and like insulin, for an example, is just outrageously priced. Mm-hmm. So hopefully it's coming down soon too.
I just had a buddy that had an operation. He had an aneurysm and had an operation on his brain, and then he had a stroke right after it, and he's going to pay beaucoup bucks. You know, and he's middle class, upper middle class, and he's gonna, you know, it's gonna drain them. I think the working class is out there getting taken for a ride, and somebody should be going to bat for them.
What do you make of the idea of TrumpRx?
You know, I think the prices overseas are really inexpensive. I don't know why the prices here are so expensive. Anything to do to recognize that and bring it down would be useful, but I'm not sure Trump is good on implementation.
I haven't heard about it, but I think it's a good idea then, because I think we pay too much for medication, medicines, and stuff like that.
He's done more for us blue collars than any president has in the last
decade.
I like the concept. I haven't looked into it enough to find out, well, how's this all going to work? Are the pharmaceutical companies going to just raise the price on everybody else, or I don't know.
I do think it's an awesome thing that he's bringing prescription drugs down, making the companies that are bringing the stuff from overseas charging us way more, when if you're in Europe you can buy it for $10 and it costs you $150 here. I agree with this policy that it's not fair to let us make us pay for everybody else's medication just because we have the money to do it.
Reports say as many as 1 million U.S. citizens born via Chinese birth tourism could become eligible to vote in the coming years. For the past 2 decades, wealthy Chinese people have exploited America's birthright citizenship. And now, investigative journalist Peter Schweitzer is sounding the alarm. Yanya Kellick, host of American Thought Leaders on Epic TV, spoke with him earlier to learn about how it all works. Schweitzer is the author of multiple New York Times bestsellers, including most recently The Invisible Coup: How American Elites and Foreign Powers Use Immigration as a Weapon.
Migration has oftentimes been used as a weapon of subversion, a weapon to overwhelm an enemy, a weapon to divide an enemy, a weapon to sow chaos.
Well, you do have a chapter at the end of the book that tries to do that. And I mean, as I was looking through that, some of it is around shifting the incentive structures of people coming here. So, you know, a big part of what you talk about when it comes to the CCP's weaponization of migration is this birth tourism. Yes. So, I mean, fascinating, shocking, and deeply disturbing examples. But here's the rub, right? You suggest, I think, that it could be there's 1 million American citizens, 500,000 to 1 million American citizens who have their allegiance to the Chinese Communist Party. Could be. Yes. And how do you get that number? I mean, that's a really large number of people.
I agree, it's a really large number of people, and I was shocked by it. The birthright citizenship issue to me is really central because it is a massive vulnerability and it's something that can be fixed. We'll see what the Supreme Court is going to settle on this, but the important thing I think for people to understand is the Chinese government, the CCP, is using birth tourism on an industrial scale. They are exploiting it on an industrial scale. So what do I mean? Well, any numbers that we have related to how many Chinese nationals are flying to the United States, giving birth here, and then flying home with the baby, raising them in communist China, and then when they turn 18, they're going to be citizens, they can vote and do everything. Our federal government has no idea. We don't track this information because you're given a birth certificate when your child is born here, whether you're an American citizen, whether you're a Chinese birth tourist, you get a birth certificate, does not list the nationality of the parents. Nobody tracks this. So our federal government says we have no idea. The number of 500,000 to 1 million, maybe more, comes actually from China. The Chinese government has looked at this and estimates, the Chinese government and some research firms say that over the past roughly 13 years, you have anywhere from 50,000 to 100,000 Chinese nationals a year doing this for 13 years, which is stunning. And there's a lot of anecdotal evidence to support this in addition to the data from China. Reports of, these flights from Los Angeles, LAX to Shanghai, where the entire business section is largely populated by newborn babies. So it's a huge problem. And I think we have to dispel the idea that birth tourism or birthright citizenship, I should say, is just something, somebody comes across the border, they make a life here, they're here for 20 years, they have a couple of kids. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about very systematic, and we're talking about something China did in Hong Kong for a while. It reached the point around 2010 that half of all newborns in Hong Kong were Chinese nationals getting birthright citizenship in Hong Kong. The government had to stop it. The government in Hong Kong at that point had to stop it because they said, this is subversion. We can't allow this to go on. Something similar is playing out in the United States. What it really comes down to is local governments who are issuing birth certificates, locations of birth. Nobody's collecting that data, and nobody is including the nationality of the parents. And which would seem like it would be an obvious thing to do.
Right.
So that would be beginning reform. I'm really hoping that when the Supreme Court looks at this issue of birthright citizenship, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not going to guess in legal details, but I do think that they would look at the fact that if you are going to have some form of birthright citizenship, the notion that somebody can literally drop off their pregnant wife, gives birth here, and as soon as the baby is able to get on a plane, you're flying back to China, that the 14th Amendment, which talks about under the legal jurisdiction thereof, would not apply.
Right.
If you snuck across the border, you've been here for 15 years, you gave birth, you've got a 5-year-old, I think people might be more understanding. But this mass industrial scale, it's a huge, huge industry. Not to even mention the issue of surrogacy, which is an offshoot of that, where you have politically connected elites in China who are hiring women in the United States to carry their children. They call them carriers, and these women, they're American citizens. They're paid $50,000, $60,000. They get the sperm, or maybe sometimes the sperm and the egg, from a couple in China. The child is born here. The child is born here is not only getting citizenship because of birthright citizenship, they're getting it because the birth mother is an American citizen. And we have no numbers on that. We have a couple of anecdotal stories. We have a case the Wall Street Journal mentioned of one single man, a billionaire in China, who, according to the Wall Street Journal, has more than 100 children born this way that are presumably going to be American citizens. So it's a massive, massive vulnerability, and we've got to wake up to it.
Tell me about UN USA.
Yeah, UN USA is one of these birth tourism companies. And what they do is they have websites. They freely advertise in China. I mean, here's the mystery point. I think we know the answer in explaining the motive of why China's doing this. But China began running articles in the People's Daily, the flagship publication of the CCP, began running articles in 2011 about how you have a right to do this. They're telling Chinese elites, you have a right to go to the United States. The 14th Amendment is going to make sure that your child will be a U.S. citizen. And so the first question would be, is why are they actually advertising this? And I think we know because
And I'll just qualify here. This means that this is the regime saying, we want you to know this,
yes,
and we want you to do this. This is not casual.
Exactly right. Exactly right. Signaling it. Exactly right. Very, very well said. And the second part of that is there's a huge industry that does this, that says, pay us $70,000, $80,000. We will fly you to the United States. We'll help you get through customs and visa. We'll help you explain how to lie on your visa. Tell people you're coming as a tourist. Don't tell them you're coming to have a child.
Hide the belly.
Yeah, hide the belly, loose-fitting clothing. They'll put them in a nice condo or hotel, and primarily in California. They'll arrange all the medical procedures. They'll maintain everything that needs to be done, and then they'll ensure that they get back safely to China. That's a huge industry. You can go on the Chinese internet, which is highly, highly regulated. You've covered that, how much they censor. It's wide open. They don't stop any of that advertising from taking place. So UN USA is one of dozens of companies that are doing this, and they brag on their websites who their clients are. And their clients are, according to them, military officers, intelligence officers, CCP officials, people from the Ministry of Propaganda. So these are not dissidents. These are pillars of the elite. And UN USA is an example of one company that the Trump administration has tried very hard to clamp down on this. It's not illegal what they're doing, but what they charge them with, and I think rightfully so, is visa fraud. Because they're telling these pregnant women to lie on the visa, saying, no, I'm not coming here for a medical procedure. I'm coming here as a tourist. And that is absolutely a felony.
You mentioned that the first baby born in 2025 in Saipan was one of these anchor babies.
Yes.
And it just reminded me, regular guest on the show, Cleo Pascal, talks about the vulnerabilities in this visa structure in Saipan, which of course is under, auspices of the U.S. Maybe if you could just speak a little bit to that and just that kind of bizarre reality on that island.
Yeah. Saipan, of course, is this, I guess, American outpost in the middle of the Pacific. And it has some, strategic value militarily to the United States. But because it is a U.S. territory, that means if your child is born in Saipan, according to this interpretation of the 14th Amendment, that is as good as if that child was born in California, Utah, New York, or Florida. So it creates a powerful incentive structure for Chinese nationals to go there because the visa requirements are more loosely interpreted. They want quote unquote tourists to come there because they don't get a huge number of them. And China sees that and has exploited it in a major way. So we need to look at that. We need to look at the larger issue of birth tourism. But we have to understand they are exploiting this on a massive scale. It's industrial, and we are completely oblivious to it. And we're looking at, beginning in 2030, a wave of what, according to Chinese estimates, is going to be 1 million citizens, I'm going to put that in air quotes, but they're U.S. citizens who have been raised in China. They were born here, shuttled back home, raised here. They're going to be voting in our elections. They're going to be donating to political campaigns. And let's remember the 2016 presidential election, it was settled by 72,000 votes. So 1 million votes is a lot of votes.
And for the full interview with Peter Schweitzer on American thought leaders, visit the epochtimes.com/epochtv. Coming up, could another partial government shutdown be on the horizon? Debate around immigration enforcement is heating up as Republicans say Democrats' demands are unrealistic. Melina Weisskopf brings us the details. And what exactly is in the SAVE Act, and what are members of Congress saying about how likely it is to pass? Chris Bobb takes a closer look at the legislation. Welcome back. I'm Tiffany Meyer. On Capitol Hill, the debate around ICE funding is heating up. Democrats doubling down on demands that Republicans say are unrealistic. Could another partial government shutdown be on the horizon? NTD's Melina Weisskopf reports.
The battle over ICE funding heating up as the clock ticks on.
The number one reform that we need are no more sanctuary cities and to have local leaders cooperate with federal officials.
It's got to be strong, it's got to be tough, it's got to rein in ICE in very serious ways and end the violence.
Days ago, senators gave themselves 2 weeks to find common ground on ICE changes. Democrats have laid out several demands publicly.
Wear identifying badges, do not wear masks. When they go to someone's door to try and get into a home, they use a judicial warrant, and they don't conduct random roving patrols or engage in racial profiling.
But with just 1 week before DHS funding expires, Republicans say Democrats may have made their demands public, but aren't coming to the table for talks.
Yet we heard nothing. And so last night, even after our attempts to have that conversation, we then yet once again see a list of demands grow from 3 to 10 without any communication. Look, that's not the way good faith negotiations begin or end.
With no closed-door talks ongoing, a bipartisan deal looks unlikely. Senate Leader John Thune describes Democrats' demands as unrealistic.
This is not a blank check situation where Republicans just to agree to a list of Democrat demands. But as of right now, we aren't anywhere close to having any sort of an agreement that would enable us to fund the Department of Homeland Security. And so, Mr. President, I would hope that the Democrats will come to the table.
The leader now readying another short-term extension for DHS funds. Even if the DHS funding runs out, Republicans point out that ICE will still be funded longer than other agencies.
What they're essentially endorsing is defunding FEMA and defunding TSA, because the ICE operation money, the detention facilities, the money for the border walls, all been front-loaded in the working families tax cut from last summer. That's just a reality. So they don't have leverage here.
The White House now pushing a demand of their own. The president wants lawmakers to add to the next funding bill the SAVE Act, which aims to require voter ID and reduce voter fraud in federal elections.
The SAVE Act directs states to remove non-citizens from their voter rolls, and we know in states across the country the president is right.
It's a request Democrats have rejected. The president on Thursday called for all Republicans to fight for voter ID, eliminating non-citizen voting, and to end mail ballots. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Melina Weisskopf, NTD News.
What exactly is in the SAVE Act and how likely is it to pass? NTD's Chris Bobb has more details.
We're going to enhance it by what the president calls the Save America Act.
And so it would be proof of citizenship to register to vote and voter ID.
President Trump, in a Thursday evening post on Truth Social, called America's elections rigged, stolen, and a laughingstock all over the world. He urged Republicans to pass the Safeguard American Voter Eligibility Act, or SAVE Act. This legislation would require proof of citizenship to vote. But Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer called the bill
dead on arrival in the Senate.
In a statement on Monday, Schumer said, quote, "If House Republicans add the SAVE Act to the bipartisan appropriations package, it will lead to another prolonged Trump government shutdown."
The SAVE Act is nothing more than Jim Crow 2.0.
The SAVE Act does not include race-based provisions or the types of restrictions that were overturned by the Voting Rights Act of 1965. But Schumer said it could affect online and mail-in registration, registration drives, and some voters who changed their names. And it could also impact Americans without certain IDs, like a passport. On Friday, Republican Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna posted on X, "Voter ID is not discriminatory. It's actually the only way to protect all votes equally. Pass the Save America Act now." Even with strong House support, the SAVE Act could be blocked in the Senate by the so-called zombie filibuster. This lets just a few senators prevent a vote by refusing to meet the procedural 60-vote threshold required to move legislation forward.
And the votes aren't there in the Senate. You've got a couple of left-leaning Republicans that just will not budge. And at this point, I think it's casting the pearls among the swine. I think the president realizes that, and that's why he's trying to negotiate this. Honestly, Leader Thune can't just come out and say, he can't trash his members. He's got a very thin line.
And we will continue to attach this to legislation and send it over, and it will be part of the discussion over the next couple of weeks, and we'll see how that shakes out.
Senate Majority Leader John Thune said on Monday that the Senate will vote on the SAVE Act, in his words, at some point. He told reporters that he doesn't know in what context, but suggested it could come up in the context of the DHS bill. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Chris Bobb, NTD News.
As Congress weighs the SAVE Act, why is enforcing voter ID especially significant in purple states like Arizona? Tonight on Capitol Report, hear from Arizona State Representative Alex Culloden. Coming up, a special tribute was held today to honor former President Ronald Reagan on what would have been his 115th birthday. We'll take you to the military ceremony and hear why organizers say Reagan's legacy still matters. Christina Corona reports. Silicon Valley is encouraging people to take public transportation on Super Bowl Sunday. That's how fans and locals can avoid being tackled by road closures and traffic congestion. David Lamb with details. And over in Italy, the Winter Olympics have begun, with Team USA taking the early lead in figure skating. Dave Martin joins us to discuss. Welcome back. I'm Tiffany Meyer. A special birthday ceremony honoring former President Reagan was held today at the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library in Southern California. NTD's Christina Corona reports on the military tribute and keynote remarks delivered at the event.
We're here at the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library in the city of Simi Valley, where officials and supporters gathered to honor and celebrate President Reagan on what would have been his 115th birthday. The ceremony includes a military honor, an official White House wreath, and remarks by former House Speaker Kevin McCarthy. The ceremony began with military honors, music by the Camp Pendleton Marine Division Band, a 21-gun salute, and a flyover. Former House Speaker Kevin McCarthy delivered the keynote address. McCarthy praised Reagan for his accomplishments, saying that even on his birthday, it was Reagan who gave Americans the gifts.
That gift is the gift of the ability to apply the traditions of the past to a changing future.
McCarthy said Reagan helped change America.
When Reagan took office, inflation was at 13%, interest rates hitting 20%, and unemployment was high. People had lost faith. In response, Reagan cut taxes. He slashed regulation. He unleashed free enterprise, and he made it easier for Americans to save and start a family.
McCarthy also shared 3 lessons he learned from President Reagan.
Lesson number 1. Peace without freedom is meaningless. Lesson number 2, trust ordinary people to to control their own destinies. And lesson 3, America is too great for small visions.
Organizers say Reagan's legacy is still important today.
President Reagan believed so much in America, American pride, optimism, the future, freedom and democracy, all things that are as just important today as they were for Ronald Reagan's era, as they were for our founding fathers.
Organizers say the annual tribute is meant to preserve President Reagan's legacy and to remind future generations of his impact on the country. Reporting from Simi Valley, California, Christina Corona, NTD News.
On Super Bowl Sunday, Silicon Valley is encouraging people to use public transportation in the area. That's so fans and locals can avoid road closures and traffic congestion. NTD's David Lamb has more.
37-year-old Arturo Hilario is excited that the Super Bowl is returning to the San Francisco Bay Area.
It's exciting. There's so much going on and across the whole Bay Area, and I feel like every little region of the Bay Area has something going on, whether it's like breweries or restaurants.
For Super Bowl 60, he says he's not going to Levi's Stadium, but is planning to take public transit to watch it nearby, avoiding road closures and traffic congestion. Now, getting to the Super Bowl is also part of the battle. Now, with the Transit mobile app, people can carry up to 10 fares per app, or even up to 20, as the local transportation agency says they are prepared. Local transportation officials say that the best way to get to the game is by using their Transit mobile app to pay for fares for themselves, family, and friends.
People were really prepared. Passengers were really prepared for public transit. And it's hopefully the same thing as Super Bowl, where public transit is your #1 choice.
Guevara estimates 25,000 people will use their system on Super Bowl Sunday, similar to when Taylor Swift performed at Levi's Stadium in 2023. People can still pay for fares at kiosks, but expect that to be more crowded than linebackers on a defensive line.
Leaving the game, fans can expect us to clear out the stadium in about 2 hours. Now we are asking everyone to be patient with us with our increased ridership.
Hilario is already walking away with a souvenir transit card.
That's awesome. It looks holographic a little bit.
Yeah, I like the colors on it.
Who are you rooting for? Because the West Coast, I would like the Seahawks to win. I feel like the Patriots have enough championships already recently in the last couple decades.
David Lamb, NTD News, California.
And now for your sports news, we're joined by NTD's Dave Martin. Dave, we've got some NFL news to discuss, but first let's start in the Olympics as the opening ceremonies were today. Now, the competitions actually started on Wednesday, but no medals have been awarded. When does that start?
Yeah, medal competitions will start tomorrow. Now, 5 different events will be handing out hardware. You're gonna have to get up early though to actually see the first ones anyway. That'll be the men's downhill skiing at 5:30 a.m. Eastern time Saturday morning. Then at 7 a.m., you got the women's cross-country skiing, the skiathlon as it's called, will be handing out medals. 3 hours later, that's at 10 a.m. Eastern time, you have the women's speed skating. It's a 3,000-meter event. That'll be a medal event too. And then at 11:45 a.m. Eastern, women's ski jumping. Finally, at 1:30 p.m. Eastern time, you have the men's snowboarding big air final. Will be handing out some hardware. Now, as far as events that went on today, Team USA had a very good day in the team figure skating event. Now, they take the early lead in that competition. Madison Chalk and Evan Bates topped the rhythm dance segment today. Now, there's 10 countries in this event. You've got 8 total segments in all. We're through 3 of them. Now, this event is going to continue tomorrow and will finally conclude on Sunday. So good luck to Team USA.
A lot happening. Shifting gears to the NFL though, the Super Bowl is just 2 days away. Who are you picking to win?
You know what? I actually have the Seahawks winning. I mean, I'm not going out on a limb here, Tip, just an FYI. They are actually favored to win. I've seen anywhere from 3 to 5 points. And you know, statistically, it's a very close match. Both teams are in the top 5 in fewest points allowed and most points scored. The main reason I'm picking them actually is because Seahawks quarterback Sam Darnold. I really think he seems poised this year, kind of put last year's somewhat failed playoff run with the Vikings behind him after he did a great regular season for them. And really, his ascension to be now a two-time Pro Bowl quarterback this year and last year, really one of the biggest storylines of this Super Bowl. As a Jets fan, I remember them drafting him 3rd overall back in 2018. He started for them as a rookie, played for them for 3 years before they traded him away, and then he kind of bounced around the league for a couple of years. Didn't find success really until last year with Minnesota. This year, he had a great season, was in top 10 statistically in a number of categories. He's clearly got things figured out right now. But one thing he has not done, though, is beat the Patriots. He will get another opportunity here on Sunday. Now, it's not unusual for a Jets quarterback not to beat the Patriots, but yeah, that's what's happened.
Well, speaking of the Patriots, should they win Sunday, are we looking at their next dynasty?
I mean, that would be pretty incredible if they were able to rebuild so quickly and without Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. I mean, those two combined for those 6 Super Bowl wins in that dynasty together. Now, Brady left in 2019, Belichick 4 years later. Clearly, they found their quarterback of the future in Drake May. He's just 23 years old. He was already a finalist for the MVP this season. That went to Matt Stafford, though, last night. Meanwhile, their head coach, Mike Vrabel, fired by the Titans 2 years ago. What a turnaround he's led. 4 wins last year. They went to 14 this year. Really, both the Seahawks and Patriots, neither of them made the playoffs last year. I don't know anybody who picked those two to end up in the Super Bowl. I mean, I certainly didn't. I thought maybe the Chiefs or Bills on one side and the Eagles or Niners on the other side. Anyway, though, I think after that long dynasty, most neutral fans are rooting for the Seahawks this time around. Don't want to see another big dynasty. I actually like dynasties. So.
Well, we've been doing our own countdown with Super Bowl ad sneak peeks. What do you have for today?
Yeah, I've got another good one today. Now, this is for Bosch Appliances. It stars a certain guy that you'll soon recognize. Let's go ahead and play it.
I'm just a guy. But when I use my Bosch appliances, I feel like more than just a guy. I feel like guy. Same goes for these Bosch power tools here. Just a guy. Guy. Man, that guy's cool. Just a guy. Sandwich? Guy. Just a guy.
You got that?
Guy, Bosch, guy. Just a guy. Guy.
With phenomenal appliances and powerful power tools.
Thought you only spoke French.
The more you Bosch, the more you feel like a Bosch.
You know, I like how the dog actually turns into Guy there too, with the blonde hair and everything. It looks like a real cool dog there.
That was going to be my comment. But Dave, as always, thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you, Tiff.
And that's all for today's news. For round-the-clock coverage, visit us at ntd.com/live or download our NTD app. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Good night.